Hi nurses, welcome to Shift Change, the podcast for nurse leaders who are ready to shift their thinking from just a nurse to claim their position as a powerful agent for change. I'm your host, Amy Deagle, founder and CEO of the International Network of Nurse Leaders. We believe in the power of nurses to change the world, so let's get started.
Hi nurses, welcome back to another episode of the coffee break edition of the Shift Change podcast. I'm your host, Amy Deagle, Chief Nursing Officer and President of the International Network of Nurse Leaders. I hope that the journaling exercise from the first coffee break edition episode went well for you and that you are starting to get some great insights about where you are shining and just lit up throughout your day, and also some awareness around some of those pieces that are feeling heavy or exhausting. Journaling really helps to find those common themes that are underlying some of our day-to-day tasks. So for example, if you're in a role where you're constantly solving problems for others and you end each day just completely exhausted, is it the type of exhaustion where you feel drained, lifeless, heavy, and just depleted? And no matter how much rest you get, you feel like you're living in this constant state of empty? Or is it an exhaustion of feeling like you have completely expended your time, talents, and gifts completely for the day? You feel used up, but in a good way, and with proper rest, you're filled up and ready to go for the next day. It's important to recognize the distinction of how you're truly feeling at the end of the day, and whether those activities that you're engaging in on a daily basis are something that are contributing to the life that you desire or decaying it. What are the parts of your day that light you up? And how can you put more of that into your life? I remember reading a lot of personal growth and development books while I was a midwife. And it seemed to be the common theme that you have control over your life, only you can make yourself happy or you can make yourself miserable. Each day is really up to you. How would you choose to spend your day? And I remember really struggling with those themes because in the midwifery practice I was in, I didn't feel that I had any control over my life. I would get in the shower and wonder, am I going to get all the way through a shampoo and condition before my phone's going to ring? I would wake up almost every hour throughout the night to ensure that I hadn't missed a call or a text or an email from a patient. We spent 7 days on call as primary midwife, and then we were secondary call the week following. So I was basically on call 24/7 for long stretches of time. I was really at the mercy of my cell phone and the patients. I had zero control over my own life, and I hated it. I developed an anxiety disorder during this time, and I would live in constant fear of something going wrong in my patients' lives that I didn't know about. And all these books were telling me to set boundaries, turn off my phone in the evening, but I couldn't do that. I couldn't stop being on. The consequences were literally life and death. And then one day it hit me. My core values of impact and freedom were in direct conflict with each other. I loved being part of such an impactful moment in people's lives. I mean, I was literally being paid to witness the miracle of life on a daily basis. I'm really not sure there's another job out there that can give so much purpose and meaning every day. But ultimately, that was the expense of my freedom and health. Things like being able to make social plans without being called out, to be able to sleep through the night, to be able to just enjoy myself instead of just spending time sitting in constant fear and anxiety about all the ways that things could go wrong. I felt absolutely powerless in my life. I was doing the job that I had dreamed about for my entire life, a job I felt was a calling, which gave me purpose and the ability to make an impact every day in somebody's life. And yet, I hated it. I remember sitting outside a patient's hospital room. Labor had gone completely sideways, and their dream of a quiet water birth at home had ended up as a crashing C-section because of placental abruption. I had made the call to transfer to the hospital on nothing more than a gut feeling that I couldn't shake. I just knew something wasn't right. I had been berated by the supervising midwife for letting my anxiety and my nursing brain get the best of me. And she told me I had cost this family their ideal birth at home. And yet, had I not made that call, had I not listened to my intuition and my nursing brain, we would have been dealing with a dead mom and baby instead of just a shattered dream of a home birth. But at the time that I was getting yelled at, we didn't know that she was going to have a placental abruption. All I knew was a gut feeling that something wasn't right. And it was in that moment, as I sat outside their room, I knew I had to make a decision that I had been dreading. I decided I did actually have a choice, because the antidote to powerlessness is personal responsibility. I was choosing to stay in that role because I had just invested $60,000 into the master's program, and I thought this was my life's purpose work. I couldn't imagine a more fulfilling role in life than being present at births. Yet, I had a choice, and I made an extremely difficult one. I chose to walk away from that life. I chose me. I chose my health and my sanity, and I trusted that somehow I would find a way to make a positive impact in the world, even though I couldn't fathom how that would be possible at the time. People judged my decision. I felt like a failure, and I carried that wound around for a long time. And yet, I chose me. It was a beautiful yet dark snapshot in time, and I am forever grateful for that time in my life. But to be honest, I don't miss it. I don't miss the constant fear, stress, and anxiety. I don't miss who I was back then. And the thing is when I started journaling and looking at what those underlying themes were, I realized the part that I truly loved about what I was doing was helping to empower women through their birth experience. It had nothing to do with the actual labor and delivery piece. It was all about helping coach women through this extremely tough time in their life, giving them an empowered birth experience so that they became stronger on the other side of it. That was the theme, and that was something I could recreate in my life outside of midwifery. Life is about hard choices. As nurses, as leaders, we are constantly expected to be on, giving fully of our time, talents, and gifts. And while that's a huge piece of why we show up every day, I want to remind you that you are just important. Making those hard choices that require sacrifice and extraordinary trust aren't easy, and honestly, it can take years to find your fit again. And that's okay. Learning to factor yourself into the equation is a radical concept for some. We're so busy looking after everyone else that we forget that we are allowed to have needs and dreams and desires too. So many of us stick our needs and wants up on a shelf, telling ourselves that we'll get back to it when we have time. We tell ourselves that right now it's just a busy season with kids or careers or family obligations. And we tell ourselves these lies day after day until one day we are so disengaged from ourselves that we barely recognize ourselves in the mirror. Healthy habits have been replaced with the easy options. Relationships that were foundational in our lives have just faded away and died. We don't remember the last time we truly felt joy because we seem to operate on autopilot, almost sleepwalking through life, yet constantly responding to fire after fire after fire. We are running on empty and we can't see the forest for the trees. It's an epidemic not only in the nursing profession, but for many, many men and women who are the helper personality types. But you do get to choose. At the end of the day, your life really is up to you. You get to take care of yourself. You get to take yourself off the shelf and put yourself back on your priority list. It's not selfish. It's self-care. And I know some people have a really hard time with the thought of putting themselves first, as we've been taught that that's wrong or selfish or self-serving, and that we shouldn't be factoring ourselves into our lives. So for those of you who struggle with this, I want to challenge you to think about it not as me first, but simply me too. If I can show kindness, compassion, and love towards everyone else, I can do it for myself too. If I can ensure everyone else has their needs met, I can do that for myself too. If I can give an hour of my time to help a friend in need, I can do that for myself too. So I'd like to challenge you to take a few moments and really examine your life. Where are you showing up for just you? That can look like taking the time to work out, meditate, spend time in nature, spend quiet time reading, just being without any demands on you. As cliche as it sounds, you cannot fill from an empty cup. At some point, if you don't decide to make yourself a priority, your body or your mind will. Whether that's in the form of physical illness, mental health challenges, or self-sabotage of everything around you, eventually you will need to make the changes. You don't have to get to rock bottom to decide you want to make a change. You get to decide today. Leading self is a crucial first step to leading on purpose. It is often overlooked in leadership training where emphasis is on skills like conflict management, communication, building effective teams. All of those skills are obviously instrumental to leadership, but we need to start with ourselves first. The leaders with a strong sense of self, a self-care practice, and awareness of self are the leaders who are able to show up with kindness, compassion, and empathy, and an ability to perform at levels of excellence because they make sure that they have been factored into the equation. They're not leading at the expense of themselves. They are leading themselves first and then others. And in doing so, are able to show up more fully engaged and more effective in their roles. Are there some hard choices that you need to be making? Or how about an easy choice? Maybe it's really as simple as deciding that you're giving yourself 30 minutes a day of uninterrupted time for the next 7 days to really do some life reflection and journaling. Your life really is up to you. What impact do you want to make? What do you want your legacy to be? Are the choices that you are making putting you closer to that life or further away? It's the tiny habits repeated over and over that make up our life, so choose wisely. You and your life depend on it. So I really, really want to encourage you to take some time, do some reflective journaling around some of those questions, especially about the impact you want to make, what you want your legacy to be, and how your life is supporting that right now or destroying that right now. And what are some changes you can make to take you a step closer? So for example, if you want to show up as a leader who is calm and centered throughout their day and doesn't fly off the handle, maybe you have a complicated situation with a staff member that you're responsible for, and you respond in anger or frustration a lot of the time, and your goal is to show up more centered. Well, that can look like starting a meditation practice. Once you get control over yourself and your emotions, you're going to start showing up differently. And when you show up differently, the people around you start showing up differently. So no matter where you're at in your nursing career, whether you have an official management role or, you're just starting on your leadership journey, I want you to start looking at those types of things. How can you show up differently? How can you show up better? How can you put yourself first so that you're coming from the best possible place to care for others? That's really the first step in our leadership on purpose journey, and really the first step on leading ourselves well. So I encourage you to do that work. Let me know how it goes. I'm always here. If you go to nurseleaders.ca/connect, you'll find how to contact me on social media or email. I would love to chat with you if you need some more advice or guidance through this piece. And as always, I hope that you have a great day. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here with me today. And if you have any questions on leadership that you would like answered on these solo episodes of the Shift Change podcast, Coffee Break Edition, please just feel free to email me. I would love to know what concerns or challenges you're facing so that we can address some of them here on this show. All right, have a good day. Bye. Hi, nurses. I hope you enjoyed that episode of the Shift Change podcast. I want to take a moment and talk to you about something really important that's happening this year. As you probably know, World Health Organization designated 2020 as Year of the Nurse and Midwife. And while it's important to celebrate the nurses and participate in all these events that are happening, we need to make sure that we are being strategic about making this the year that we really use our collective voice to raise the profile and status of nurses and advance our profession. Understandably, some of you may feel resistance to this call to action. After all, how can we expect nurses to raise the profile and status of nurses and advance the profession when oftentimes nurses aren't even getting a proper break to sit down, eat something, or even use the bathroom on their shift? But you know what? If we don't act and act now, nothing will ever change. No one is coming to save the nursing profession from the burnout and exhaustion, from the staffing crises and nursing shortage, from the violence and bullying, from the budget cuts, and all the other threats to our profession that we are currently facing. Only we can save ourselves. And that can only happen when we decide enough is enough. We must decide that this is the year that we are going to use our collective voice to shout our value to the world, to introduce innovative and revolutionary ideas into healthcare, to advocate for our patients and our profession, to shed the just a nurse mentality and claim our position as leaders, and in doing so, change our profession. This year, 2020, Year of the Nurse and the Midwife, you get to decide. Is this the year that everything changes? Is this the year that we finally say enough is enough and break through the status quo? Is this the year that you, yes, each one of you, decide that you are tired of just complaining and actually put in the work to make a change? Because the truth is, it is up to us. And nothing changes if no one changes. Let me say that again. Nothing changes if no one changes. There is a movement happening and it needs you. We are stronger together. Come join us as we disrupt the status quo and evolve our profession. It's time. It's our time. We're stronger together, so let's get started. If you want to know how you can join the movement of change, visit nurseleaders.ca/2020nurse to opt in for a free 3-part video series about how we can use 2020, the year of the nurse and midwife, as the year we use our collective voice and lead our profession forward. So jump on over to nurseleaders.ca/2020nurse for all the details. I'll see you over there.